Hello everyone, and welcome to our Circle and Salve Women. Today we are going to talk about my newest article, and that is being a teacher, the catch-22. I came across that word, I cannot recall when, many years ago, and yet it was so fascinating to me because it essentially is from a book I found out in 1961 novel, I believe, by Joseph Heller, and it was really focusing in on soldiers. And I have always said to myself that as teachers, we are the frontliners of education. And you have to think of it, here I go again, analogizing, that you are just turning to your students, and every time that they say, I don't think we can do this, I don't think I'm going to make it through, I don't think I'm going to succeed, I'll never ever get through this, you turn to them and say, just stay behind me and all will be well, and you've got this. As long as you are willing to fight through to the very end, we've got this. But you are always going to be the frontliner. And so in that term, catch-22, anyone who's ever said, now I'm a middle school teacher, and I've heard many times where people say, you're crazy, why would you want to be a middle school teacher? And I look at it the same thing as soldiers, with much respect, of course, perhaps even greater respect, because what I do, I feel that I'm able to do. And I look at soldiers and I think to myself, when you are in the front liner, I cannot imagine. When I look at police officers, when I look at firefighters, and they know that in that moment, it could be very much their last time, when you're risking your life, obviously to me, that is on a different level of sacrifice. And I have great honor for those that always think this could be very much their last day because they're putting their life on the line. But as in education, I feel that when people think, why would you want to teach other than anything else, I really look at it in this mindset of people telling me it's like a catch-22. And if you are familiar with it, it's basically stating like you just don't win. And hopefully I am explaining this in a way or conveying it in a way where it gets straight to the point. But when someone says you're insane for doing that, and then you say, okay, well then I won't do it. Then people go, well then you are saying you should do it. So that's that catch-22. It's a never win situation. You put yourself in there knowing that it is the craziest thing to be putting yourself in. It's a crazy position to be in. And all of a sudden when you say, I don't want to do this, then people go, well, you are definitely sane to say that. And so here is where then we can trust you, because of all the people who have not said it, you're the one to admit it. And so there you are in that position where it is considered to be catch-22, because you never win. And so in my article, I truly have to wonder sometimes, by the time that it's like October, so this is a very interesting year. And, I say that, and yet there have been years where perhaps it was just the group of students that were coming in, and we had to wonder what's going on, how are they coming in this way, and why are they seemingly acting a little bit more disconnected or troubled than in the past. And this is where teachers have to come together and ask what's going on. In the midst of it, you're still going through it, you're still moving forward, and you're trying to figure out the whole year. And sometimes by the time the year is ended, you're still asking yourself that question. So for me this year, it's interesting because we know that, during COVID times, a lot of students had to stay home. And even during hybrid times, there are some parents or guardians that decided for the child to stay home the entire time. So you're dealing with students that may have skipped their social ethics or social development for like over a year because they had got sent home early at the time that COVID broke out and the SARS-CoV-2 virus broke out. And so all of a sudden, then they had to face yet another full year where they could not go to school. And so it could be very troubling to the heart, the mind, the body, and the spirit. And you know, really understanding that and putting your emotions to the side and knowing that this is what you have to deal with for the year. And so you're going into that mindset and you're dealing with it every day, every moment, from period to period. You know that you're going to be dealing with issues where what you're trying to do is have them adapt to your expectations, the school's expectations, the learning environment expectations. And yet you are seeing how they may be expressing how they are feeling on the inside. And many of them, if you ever ask your students, or if you ever ask a classroom of students, the first thing they'll say is to make friends. And that majority every year, if you were to ask them what is the one thing that you really hope for this year, is to make more friends. And you know, some parents or guardians who've never probably run into that and have ever asked a room of students, here's what I have found every year, is that essentially they want to be validated, they want to be seen as an individual, and they want to be liked because there's some goodness in them that they know is within them. And sometimes it's hard for them to express because maybe they had one year where life happened at home, life happened in school, life happened just all over, and all of a sudden they ended up feeling like they were labeled for that year, and then they're trying to move forward, and yet somehow the attention they got in the past they missed because they started to miss it because that was the only time that people put so much attention toward them. And sadly, it was their not so good behaviors that got them attention. And so they go forward with that mindset, and then you have to try to undo it and say, this is not who you are. Here's your greatness, here's your light, and this is not something that you should expect of yourself because I see all of this greatness in you, and you are running away from it by having these type of behaviors instead of the behaviors you know you're capable of being able to exemplify for the rest. You are a leader, you know, and all of that you try to plant into students, and it could take so much work. So it could be every day, and as you work on it, sometimes they will digress, and all of a sudden they're resorting back to what they were before. You know, you could be thinking, oh, this is a great October, and then all of a sudden you see their mindset shift back to what it was in September. It could have been someone who whispered into the ear that they will never get better, or that they will never become who you have seen them to become. Moving forward, then they start to take 10 steps back, and can be very disheartening and very draining. Now, times that by an hour to 25, and it can be very draining per period. And it's not to say that every kid comes in with baggage. Thankfully, it's maybe 1 to 2 per class, and then times that to 5 to 6 periods a day, sometimes 4 if you're lucky, depending on the type of year that has been structured for you. And you are all of a sudden feeling like, why am I doing this? And I should be believing what everybody is telling me, and this is insane. And you start to say to yourself, maybe this is it for me. This is going to be the year that I'm going to just be done, you know, and you start to really look forward to those days off that you get. It gets to be a point where sometimes, you know, you're just thankful for whatever day that they've given you nationally as a national day off, and you're just thankful for it. Whatever it is, you know, whether it be Dr. Martin Luther King Day, whether it be Veterans Day. And it's not to dishonor those that we are honoring and commemorating, but it's just that moment where, you know, I get to breathe. I get to go home and just perhaps be underneath my blanket and just really get to decompress and then rejuvenate myself so I can do this all over again. And so hence, this is sometimes people will say, why are you doing this? And then there's the others that say, you know what, you guys, you complain too much. You guys have all these holidays off. You get your spring break and you get your summers off. What do you have to complain about? And of course, if it's snowing, you get to stay home. And what you have to understand from a teacher's perspective, and let me put you there, and just out of respect for all educators out there, when you decide to take a day off, you are starting to fear what your class will be like when you return. You know that there will be some steps backward. because whatever lesson that you have naturally been able to do, if it were just you in the classroom and you've already structured and have set in your head, as soon as you decide to take a day off, if for any reasons, for whatever reason that you took a day off and you had to get a substitute, we'll go into that as well, then all of a sudden you realize that you have created a change in their routine, and kids do not deal very much all together in change, and it's very difficult for them, because especially if they're coming from a desire, a much great need for just something to be stable in their life, and they get it at school, it is a struggle for them to see that all of a sudden you have changed that, and the dynamic in your classroom has all of a sudden reshifted back to, something that you perhaps did not want, and it went back to what you were trying to build back in September, and all of a sudden you feel like just that one day off, you have to pay the consequence. And then lo and behold, if you don't have a substitute, you could have so many teachers who are already just going through their own motions of taking care of their own students, then they have to cover your class. And then it again changes the dynamics, not just for your students, but everyone around you. And you're feeling like you, just by making that choice to take a day off, you have really taken away the spirit and the energy of those around you. And so there's a lot to think about. And when you take a day off, now those natural days given, you then think to myself, oh my goodness, I get to go home, I get to rejuvenate, I just get to just feel like I can just let down and then come back and do this all over again. And yet sometimes, sadly, you will see students that come in and they've had just giving them an extra day at home cause them to really derail from that unified type of community that you created in the school system, whether it just be in your classroom. Just that one extra day or maybe 2 days, you can actually feel that there was some room for neglect that was happening at home. Because let's face it, when you're at home, as kids get older, we tend to believe that our kids don't want us around, and they don't want to spend time with us, or that we feel that they have gotten to a point where their hormones kick in, their attitudes start to shift in the most unwanted ways, and we are trying to stay away from them because we don't want to, create havoc at home. And then all of a sudden they're feeling this, and they don't know how to say it to you, like, I'm feeling as if you are neglecting me, that you don't want me around. And yet their attitudes, it's reciprocating that very same message to you, that they don't want you around, they don't want to respect you or have anything to do with you. And it's almost this continuation of cyclical and unfortunate events that take place at home, and it grows into some form of silent animosity. And then all of a sudden the students come to school feeling that void, and they don't know how to explain it, they don't know how to express it, and they will try to dig deep by then acting out in some way. And again, thankfully it's just the very few, but those very few could really very much change the entire dynamics of the classroom. You could have a peaceful classroom, and all of a sudden one student coming in having already a bad day because it went from arguing with mom to first period, then second period, and then lunch, arguing with a friend, and then all of a sudden they're coming in by third period, and they are just going to attack everyone and anything that gets in their way, and they want to express themselves, and they're emotionally tied to all that is just starting to rumble or erupt inside of them. And you are having to face that in the classroom, and you're trying to decompress it, but not even knowing where it's coming from, and they aren't able to just openly say it in the classroom. So that's what you're dealing with when you're given those extra days off. And then of course you have your spring break, and it's nice when you have a spring break, but I kid you not, during that time, if you've been doing this long enough, you already know that you're going to prepare. You have to think, well, what is going to be my week like when I return? You have to be prepared. You cannot be in a position where you lack the structure and the organization, because it's a mismanagement on your part if you come in back to the school setting and thinking that you have nothing planned. So as teachers, you have to plan ahead. So in that spring break time, even though you are physically out of the room, you are mentally, spiritually, and emotionally still connected, and that you are thinking the whole entire time. Hopefully not the entire time, but it's always in the back of your head of saying, where am I going to be when I return to school, and what do we need to do to then pick up from where we left off? And that's how it is all year long. And so just so you know, we as educators, we do a lot, and yes, we benefit from the days off. And why, people would ever think that we are spoiled. I always think to myself, just spend some time, on what it is like for a day. And if I was just to sit back and just let you take over, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. I really wouldn't. And it's that catch-22, because you think to yourself, perhaps I am insane for doing this, and yet at the end of the day, and I know soldiers think this all the time, I know police officers think this all the time, firefighters, those who fight, those surgeons who have to fight for people's lives, I know that they think to themselves, as I do, if not me, then who? And I cannot tell you enough that that's what gets me through every time, because I say to myself, who would be better in there than me? And that may be some arrogance, but I know that surgeons can relate. I know nurses can relate. I know firefighters can relate. I know police officers, and of course all of our soldiers who fight for us can relate, because if your eyes are away, if your body is away, who is taking your place? And if you truly believe in those who you're fighting for, you just feel that they are always with you, and that you must be with them at all times. And the only difference is for us as educators is that we get a summer off. Here's this piece right here that I must say, and I always joke with, is they give you that so you forget. And by August, you start to miss it. And you say to yourself, I can't wait for my new group of students. I can't wait to see them again. And come back again in October, you start to go, when's that next day off again? So it is a catch-22, but in no way to see it in a negative manner, because when you choose to do what you know that you have been called to do, you do it so much with the determination to finish through, and you just know that there are going to be days where you're battling so much more, and then there are days where you go, wow, the sun is out, there is no rain to be seen, the sky is blue, all are in peace, and everyone is joyful. You embrace those moments. And then the other moments where it is downpouring on, it just seems as if like you just cannot even take a breath, then that's what you feel that you have already anticipated is part of your duty, and you're going to make it through. And you look at all those eyes that look at you, and you owe it to them to really be strong and continue to believe. And for those of you who have children at home, much power and love to you and respect, because I also know how that feels, that at the end of the day, those who truly in your inner core should matter to you most get the leftover of you by the end of the day, and you don't want to complain. You don't want to make it seem as if you are spiteful, because that's not what it is. You're just drained. But unfortunately, your ears are ringing from all of what has been said all day. Your heart is aching from all that you have felt all day. And your spirit is down from all of the being bogged down all day sometimes. And again, there are days where you just like feeling totally strong and totally refreshed by the time you get home. And then there are days where you say to yourself, you know what, I still have to play the role as a parent and as a spouse, and I have to make sure that they know they matter to me the most. And you may be running on empty, but you can't say that to anyone. It is not to their fault. And so you do your best to listen, you do your best to feel, you do your best to really just take in what everybody else is trying to share with you about their days. And, you know, there's nothing about you that wants to share yours, because you know the first thing that's going to come out of your mouth is, it'll sound like a complaint, and you're not complaining. You just have to take it in within you and say, this is what I do, and my family needs me, and I need to listen to them because their life is important, and they need to really know that they are being heard. But you're not perfect, and you can only do what you can to really try to rule out everything else of what was important at school, and then compartmentalize your life to then what is most important at home. And I cannot tell you enough, just like as a soldier and all the people who fight in the front lines, you have to feel like me, where I cannot wait to just be home. And if I'm in my pajamas by late afternoon and I am just cuddling with my children and being able to just watch whatever, you know, movie that they want to watch, or just listen to my husband speak, to me, at the end of the day, no matter how tired you can feel, you know that you made it through another day, and you have arrived to where you feel that has pushed you through all day long to get to. So in the words of my mother, God bless us all. Thank you, everybody, for continuing to do you in the best way you can, and that we are shining, and that we know our next generation is counting on us, and that life is good. You know, always look at it from that perspective, because there is always going to be light, and light is always going to be stronger than darkness. So let the darkness be afraid, so that you can always be the one to just push through and be the soldier that you are. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you next time.